Stampede Blue. What we talking about? Indianapolis, AFC South. Stampede Blue, let's air it out. Fly route, let's air it out. Topics, loaded like offense. Colts-centric, talking about it often. Stampede Blue, let's air it out. Fly route, let's air it out. Do it big, like lines for an offense. Colts-centric, don't take offense. Back in the day, Colts versus Dolphins. Nowadays, it's Jags playing Moncton South. AFC, white and blue, so pristine.
Welcome back to the Stampede Blue Colts cast. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm your host, Matt Danley. Thank you guys for hanging out with me again tonight. It's been a while since we've had a show where we kind of strictly stuck to some listener call-ins. So that's what we're planning for tonight. We're going to get, a little bit of news out of the way real quick. Then I'm going to open up the phone lines. Let me get everything all set up for that. And then we'll get down to business. So not a lot in the way of news right now for the Colts, but the Colts have signed Randall Telfer off of waivers. Now, there was kind of a strange story that he was initially set to be traded for, traded to, I think, the Browns from the Chiefs or vice versa. And then the trade fell through. Both teams kind of reneged on the trade. And then he was, waived and the Colts scooped him up. They ended up waiving themselves, Jason Vanderlaan. And so that puts him kind of at the bottom, down there with Mo Alley Cox and those guys, I would assume, maybe around Darrell Daniels level for the on the depth chart right now. So other than that, really not a ton of news going on. I mean, we've got some things about Jim Irsay, buying or purchasing the founding AA document. I think a lot of people have obviously put into that's kind of up his alley, so to speak. But I think he did that obviously for a little more towards, something that's personal to him. He's struggling with addiction. I think that's something that is actually important to him. I think it's actually a much better buy than, the guitars and all the other stuff that he purchases at these auctions. But I think that was a pretty cool story. Also, Colts former linebacker Edwin Jackson, who passed away in that accident there, ended up getting his degree posthumously from Georgia Southern. I thought that was really cool of them. And I think that's important for, his family either way. It's a kind of a strange situation is to really put a worth on that. But I think that the fact that his family gets to hang that in their family room or just whatever is really, really cool to actually see that, because he was going back to get it. You know what? And Edwin Jackson was such a great guy anyways, that's just something that and they knew that he was going to get it. It was going to be something that was going to be, something that he was going to earn to begin with. It was really cool of Georgia Southern to go ahead and give that to him. Also, kind of a neat story. Chad Beebe, Don Beebe's son, who played for the Bills a long time ago, was actually teammates with Frank Reich. He is set to actually have a mini camp invite. Now, I don't know if this is passed or not, because the article was written really kind of strangely. I don't know if he's going to be there for the rookie minicamp this weekend or if he was already there. However, he got a chance, with the Vikings, and then was set to go to the Colts for an invite as well. So I thought that was kind of cool. If you guys don't remember, Don Beebe was one of Kelly's most trusted receivers, was in there through all the times that the Bills were in the Super Bowl, I believe, at least two of those. And was actually a really somewhat pivotal point in his, John Kelly's growth, I guess you could say, throughout his years. So it was kind of interesting to see that his son is already, getting an opportunity at the pros and such. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like I said, other than that, we don't have a ton of news to get through tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines, and we're good. So if you guys want to call in, you guys can call 574-626-8689. We'll get some of your calls on the show, and we'll do the best we can. Remember, now, listen, if you guys are on hold when you call in and you hear me still talking, relax. Stay on the line. I'll take you off a hold in a minute as soon as I'm done talking, and we'll get your answer or your questions or your comments or anything else on the show. So If you guys want to call in 574-626-8689, give me a ring and we'll get that bad boy underway. Until then, let's talk a little bit about what I put up a Colts way too early 53-man roster, and most of the feedback basically said, now here are the two guys mainly that got the most attention. Kenny Moore, I had him being cut. Also Sky Moore, actually, I had him being cut. But TJ Green, I had him being cut. And TJ and Kenny were two of the guys who got the most attention from everybody as far as that they thought that they would make the roster. Now, I don't disagree necessarily, obviously, but we can't just go chalk on something this far in advance. You know, it was fun to do, fun to look through this. And be honest with you, I went back and forth with several different guys, especially, you know, some guys among the linebacker group. Antonio Morrison ended up getting cut in my 53-man. And I just kind of felt like there was some additional opportunities for some guys, especially one of the guys that got, as far as the cornerbacks go, that got most of the, you know, dismissal was Andre Tolliver, who's a UDFA right now. And for the Colts, he was really productive at in college. So I thought that he's being a physical guy, being a little bigger than Kenny Moore. He was kind of the guy that I put in as, you know, the option that I thought would be probably a little bit better suited for the Colts in this 4-3 Tampa 2 scheme, or whatever is actually going on with what the Colts are doing. Look, Kenny Moore played pretty well last year. He played outside. He's like 5'9" though, and he is physical. I'm not trying to say that he's not a willing tackler, but the point is that I just didn't see that he was going to be able to stay up as far as how tough he was against the run. I just felt like most of those guys were going to be able to possibly beat him out as far as physicality and everything else. So as you guys can tell, we've got our first call. So what's going on? How you doing? You're on the Colts cast.
Hey, you talking to me right now?
Yep.
Okay, hey, thanks for having my question.
Absolutely.
Something I've been wondering ever since the end of the draft. Was wondering, we look pretty deep at guard, which is, you know, it's always a good thing. But presuming everyone's healthy, could you see Muhort playing tackle, or would you feel more comfortable with either LaRaven or Denzel playing right tackle still?
I think that Jack could probably play tackle. I don't know that it's something that the Colts necessarily wanted to do. He kind of went back and forth there. What was it, in 2015? He got a little bit of action at tackle. I think that he could play it. I don't know that that's who I would prefer there. I would prefer to see Muhort actually and honestly beat out Braden Smith for that right guard spot. Now, if Braden Smith is for some reason, you know, used at tackle, or thought that they can at least work him out there or something like that, I think that's something that they may want to consider. I don't think it's anything that you want to push. If he's a guard, he's a guard. You know what I'm saying? I like it when they try guys out at different positions. I don't like it when they try to kind of push them in that direction. I think that they've done that with Denzel Good and LaRaven Clark a couple too many times. And I'm just not a big fan of that. And for that matter, Haig as well. You know, they moving those guys around. Haig's a little bit more of a utility guy, but I would like to see, ultimately, if I had my choice, I would like to see Denzel Good play well enough to actually earn that spot at right tackle. I thought that his rookie year, when he ended up getting some time, he played really well. He's better suited at tackle. They've moved him into guard, and then his form and everything and his fundamentals kind of went downhill. Like I said, if I was to choose one, that's where I would put him. I would put Good out at right tackle, and then just allow the competition on the interior to kind of take care of itself.
I agree.
Do you think that Clark is even going to make this roster, or are you kind of down on him?
I hope so. I might be a little biased because he's actually from Texas. I'm from Texas. So, but, you know, obviously playing well is, you know, the most important thing. But I mean, I hope so. He was, what was he, a 3rd round pick? I really want him to, you know, work out for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd like for him too. I actually thought that Clark would be better suited in this offense. I do actually think that Clark is better suited for this offense because of, you know, he was in the Texas Tech system where it was kind of aired out. And I think that the quicker the passing game, the better for him, because I think he's got good feet. He's got good athleticism. And I think that he's better suited for this because of that. Now, I'm not so sure he's going to get the rope necessarily because of how he's played while Chris Ballard's been in the building. Does that make sense? I think he's going to get a fair shot.
Oh, yeah.
I think he's going to have a fair shot. I just don't know if they're really going to allow him to have too many screw ups before he's kind of, pushed aside and somewhat forgotten, at least, to be in consideration for that starting spot. I think that Colts offensive line right now really looks to be a competitive bunch, to be quite honest with you. I think Matt Slauson's a guy who can slide into center if for some reason Kelly gets back into injury troubles. They've got some real options, in other words, along that line. So I'm excited for that, man. But hey, thank you for your call.
Too.
Thank you for your call. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to our next call. How you doing, man? You're on the Colts cast.
Okay.
You there?
Oh, yeah, I'm here. I'm sorry. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right.
What you got for us tonight?
Hey, man, how you doing, buddy? This is Vance from Atlanta, Georgia. How you doing, man?
I'm doing wonderful, man.
Yeah,
Thank you for calling. Hey, turn me off.
Yeah.
Turn me off in your background because I'm getting a feedback, and I think that's on a delay.
Oh, okay.
That's probably why.
You hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I think Leeward. I think we kicked Leeward back to left guard. Him and Costanzo got a good chemistry. I think Nelson try him at right guard. See how that works, and along with Denzel or whatever. I think the right side of the line is where we really need to help at. So I kind of trust Denzel a little bit. So
yeah.
Let's try Nelson on the right side and keep Leeward on the left side and see how that works out.
Yeah, I think
about it.
I think the good definitely deserves the opportunity to fail. Whatever they decide to do at right tackle, I'm fine with. If they feel like Good can't do it, they feel like that Clark can't do it, or whoever they want to throw out there, whether they want to actually, and they may end up throwing Haig out there. If they feel like somebody can play that right guard spot, like Braden Smith and he earns it, or Muhort, or whoever earns it, maybe they put Haig out there and like him there, or, whatever they decide to do. I think the talent level, though, is much better at where this offensive line currently stands. I think it's something that the Colts have needed for a while. It's going to be more competitive. And I think that when you add Nelson in there, and Smith's athleticism and his length is really going to be, a lot of what the Colts are wanting to do with their offense. So I think he probably would have that little bit of extra assistance, I guess you would say, in earning that right guard spot, because they do want guys who can pull. They do want guys who can get to the second level effectively and be more athletic, getting to the linebackers to allow those running backs some extra second level yards. And that's really where the Colts have struggled. Look, 2 years ago, the Colts had really good I can't even remember the stat now. They had really good first level yardage to where they were getting Frank Gore, some honest yards before he had to put a move on anybody or break a tackle or anything. Their second level yards has been terrible for years. They don't get guys to the second level to block. Those running backs we haven't really had a running back who could really shake and break, and the one thing that we have with Marlon Mack now, Nyheim Hines, and even with Jordan Wilkins now, they've got patience, they've got dynamic, and they've got receiving ability, and they've got big play ability. They've really, if this offensive line can play athletically, can be a solid protection unit, then this Colts offensive line is going to be something that the Colts really are happy about going forward, I think.
Yeah, man, I'm excited for the season, man, with Frank Wright and this new offense. Marlon Mack finally getting a chance to shine. Man, I think this offense is going to be like, a lot of people going to sleep on the Colts, but I think we're going to surprise a few folks this year coming up.
Oh yeah, everybody's sleeping on the Colts.
So kind of concerned about, sir.
I said everybody's sleeping on the Colts.
Yeah. And a lot of people kind of really need to understand that this is going to be a process. He's already said he wants to build through the draft.
Mm-hmm.
So as fans, we got to be patient. You know, everybody wants the top star. I'm glad he didn't go out and spend a lot of money. You know what? Just don't go out and just throw the money away like Ryan Grissom did for a lot of years. You know, let's build through the draft. You know, so Colts fans, Colts Nation, y'all got to be patient. You know, give Chris Ballard a chance. I love the move that he's making, man. I'm trusting the process.
Yeah,
so to speak. You know, so
yeah.
I mean, give fans. We got to be patient, man. It's not going to change overnight. You know, give Chris Ballard a chance. He's making a lot of decisions. We kind of just got to trust him. You know, I'll be honest, I forgot about Joe Haig. So, yeah, I think we got options, you know.
Right.
I think the line's going to be way better with Nelson along. So, anything to help out the run game, because I think we're going to have a couple of 100-yard rushers this season here coming up. So,
yeah, that would be
excited for the season.
I mean, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Even get us a 1,000-yard rusher that's not just breaking that 1,000 yards at the last moment. One that's actually getting it that we can actually, depend on to get 12, 13, 1,400 yards or something like that. I think that would be actually fantastic. So thank you for the call, man. We're going to talk to you guys later. We're going to move over to this next call. How you doing? You're on the Colts Cast.
Hey, what's up, Matt? This is Jason from the For the Culture podcast.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, brother. I got to tell you, I'm a huge baseball fan. My Orioles are in the toilet. They're 8-26, so I'm calling into your show on a Monday night to talk Colts football. So
can't watch that, huh?
It's gonna be a long year for a lot of. And I know a lot of Colt fans or Red fans, and they're not doing very well either. So
right.
But I love talking football. I wanted to ask you a couple questions. One of the undrafted free agents, or a couple of them, the corners, there's one out of UNLV, Robert Jackson, 6'1", 202. I think he runs 4'4". And the other guy out of Arkansas, Tolliver. I really think one of those guys with the roster the way it is, I think one of those guys has a chance to make the team just based on the numbers. If we don't add anyone else, obviously.
Right.
I was wondering what your thoughts were on those two guys.
Well, one of the guys that I put on my way too early 53-man roster was Tolliver, but it was mainly, and to be quite honest with you, Jackson, I love his size. He's got he's like 6'1", little over 200. And he's got from what I've seen, there's so little out there as far as video of some of these guys, but he's got the ability to get his hands up. He's a long, lanky guy. But I chose Tolliver over, even Kenny Moore, because he was so productive in school. I thought he was he looked to be more physical, had 30 some solo tackles, I think, over the past couple years, whereas Jackson and even Durr, some of these other guys that are coming in unsigned or undrafted, I guess, they were, not nearly as productive. And I was trying to look in accordance with the 4-3, what they're going to be expected to do as far as physicality on the outside of the numbers. And so I kind of went with Tolliver on that. He's not as big as some of the other guys, but he's only 185 pounds, but he is 6 foot. He was physical. He does. I think he averaged 8 to 10 batted balls per year over the past 3 years. So I put him in there just kind of based on, honestly, solely on production. I thought that he was a guy who could possibly be that guy.
Yeah, when I looked at the two of those guys, one, it was Tolliver was more. You look at him, and you're like, okay, this kid's productive, and then Jackson's kind of a guy that you look at his size and his potential, and it intrigues you. So
for sure,
it'll be interesting to see how that plays out on the field once they get out there and start playing. But another question I had for you was, I thought the steal of the draft, and this is just my opinion, for our draft was Deion Kane. I thought his junior year Clemson was or maybe it was his junior or sophomore year Clemson. Was he an underclassman when he? Yeah, I believe so. Went pro.
I think he was a junior.
Okay, so his sophomore year when Deshaun was there, he was unbelievable, and I think he's got maybe one of the highest upsides of any receiver in this draft. He's got speed. He's tall. He can do everything you need a receiver to do. And I just wanted to see what your thoughts were on him making an immediate, not just an impact, but an immediate impact in our offense. Because I think if you put T.Y. and Marlon Mack and all these guys on the field, and other, Nyheim Hines in the slot maybe.
Mm-hmm.
All these guys on the field, all this speed. I could see Deion Kane making quite a difference.
Yeah, I think that he could. Honestly, I think that it really depends on how fundamentally he is through camp. Whoever the guy is, I think that comes in and is really crisp in their routes and shows that he can, absolutely create some separation, whether it be on the break or, off the line of scrimmage for that matter, I think is going to be the guy that really gets, I guess you could say, the hopes up for like not only the coaching staff, but for Ballard himself. Fountain is a guy that I think everybody wants to see actually do something on the field, but Kane is a guy who like you said, he played for Clemson. He had a fantastic season 2 years ago with Watson. He's a guy that fell off. He didn't fall off in catches, but his production wasn't as impressive. He had, I think, less yards per reception, and I don't think that he had as many touchdowns either. I think he went from 9 down to 6, and he is a guy who's really intriguing. And I agree with you. His size is something that is what we're seeing right now in the Colts wide receiver core. I mean, look up and down their list. I mean, 6'2", 6'3", 6 foot. They've only got one guy that's under 6 foot, and that's T.Y. Hilton, who's actually on the roster. I mean, everybody is 6 foot or above. So that's what they're obviously looking for. They want those guys who are big and physical and have some speed. So I think you could be right. Honestly, myself, I just haven't watched enough of Kane, at least not as this last season. From everything that I've heard and everything that I've seen, whether it be on Twitter or whatever, basically says that he was kind of screwed over by the quarterback situation there. And I tend to understand that a little bit, but like I said, he was still productive with his catches. It sounds to me like the situation with his actual statistics after the catch was probably a situation where, he was seen late. He was seen open late, still made the catches, still produced and still got some touchdowns, but still wasn't allowed to get that yards after catch because he wasn't with such a quarterback who would throw him open or actually hit him while he was just getting open. Kind of a situation that we've seen, last year, even with Brissett, with some of these receivers for the Colts. So I think that we can definitely feel for him for that. I'm excited to watch him. I'm excited to see all these guys, especially the receivers in camp, because I want to see Hogan. I want to see several of these guys actually do something. I'm actually really intrigued by Colby Listenby. He was a guy when he came out that was really kind of drawing some interest when he was being drafted, or when his draft was up and he was in there. And I thought that was really interesting to see what he could do. He's kind of been way under the radar since then. And, there's just so many of them. I want to see all of them play. I'm excited to see them. So especially Kane for that matter. So as far as firsthand knowledge of his last season, I don't really have that. Like you said, his 2 years ago, he was really good. He's got the requisite height and weight that they're looking for right now for this wide receiver core. And I think that anybody, if you look after T.Y. Hilton and after Chester Rogers, all these guys are going to be able to, be impressive, I think, or at least have the opportunity to impress, to get into that number 2 or 3 role.
Yeah, the things I noticed about the young guys, Ishmael, as an undrafted guy, and then also Kane and also Fountain, they all kind of have similar things that they need to work on. They didn't really have extensive route trees at Clemson, Northern Iowa, or Syracuse. They played in a specific type of offense, so they ran specific type of plays. So they're definitely going to have to work on their route running. But just in raw ability, I think they've got guys that fit what they do and will make a difference. It's just a matter of them being coached up properly, which I think will actually happen as opposed to the last 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And guys that and a lot of the players that Ballard drafted, one thing I noticed when I was going through it and grading them is a lot of the issues these players that we drafted have can be coached. It can be taught. They can be taught a correct way. Like I'm trying to think of somebody. Hines out of NC State has an issue with blitz pickup, and he's small, and that's never going to change. But they can teach him the proper way to the technique to block well enough so that he can stay in the game. They don't have to. Not everyone's going to know where the ball's going to this guy when he comes in the game. So it's just, I think there's a lot of interesting things going on in Indianapolis. If 12 comes back healthy, I think this team chucks everybody. And I'm excited, man. And one other thing I wanted to touch on before I jumped off was there's still 2 free agents. One I really hope they take a look at, and the other one I wanted to get your opinion on. One is Bashard Breeland out of the Redskins. I know he's hurt, get some freak injury. I would love for them to take a look at him and maybe make the Sear like kind of like a backup to every position, because he could play inside, outside, doesn't really matter.
Right.
I wanted to get your thoughts on Breeland and your thoughts on Navarro Bowman.
Honestly, Bowman would be great. I just don't think that he's in the. I just don't think he's in the vision for Chris Ballard. I mean, as far as age and everything else, I think Bowman would be a fantastic pickup, and I think he'd be a great 1-year bridge, so to speak, to whatever they want to do at the linebacker position. Man, I mean, because he's a beast, you know. I mean, he's great.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like the leadership, the ability. I think he's only going to be 30.
Right.
So he's not like, it's not like DeQuell Jackson. It's not like he's 34 years old.
Right.
He's going to be 30, dealt with some injuries, but the leadership, the knowledge that he could pass down for, even if it's just for 1 year, to the guys that we're going to have in that locker room, I think it would almost be invaluable.
Right. And so I agree with you.
That's one guy I was considering,
right,
just thinking about.
And I do agree with you. I think, though, that I think their version of him, and not that the two players can necessarily be compared statistically or impact-wise, I don't think, at least on the field. But I think that they brought in the knowledge and the experience and everything with Najee Good. I think that that's who they brought in for that from the Eagles, because they knew that they had a guy who understood the system, understood what they were hoping to do and stuff. I think that that's what he is going to provide, or at least that they hope he's going to provide. If they don't see a lot of excitement from him, or if they don't gain a lot of excitement from him in early on in camp, then I think that they may try to add somebody late. And that could be, I mean, I still don't think it would be Bowman, although, like you said, I think that it would be a great pickup for everything that he could possibly bring, locker room, field-wise, everything. I just don't know if that would be the guy, but I do think that they would definitely be interested in adding some sort of veteran leadership who's got a lot of experience in a 4-3. Now, as far as Breeland goes, I would have been excited if they'd assigned Breeland, you know, when he in the midst of free agency. With his foot injury, you know, depending on how quickly something like that heals, I don't really know, but I'm all for it, because the guy, I mean, he's definitely a proven corner. He's a guy who could at least come in and challenge for a starting spot, if nothing else. But he's also a guy who has some experience in the slot as well. Not a lot. I'm not trying to say that he's a slot corner. I'm just saying that he's got experience, and they can move him around however they felt necessary. And he's a physical guy. So, I mean, I think that the only thing with him, and this goes for most of the Colts corner room, to be quite honest with you, is that they're a little too touchy within 5 to 10 yards. And I think that they're going to be getting a lot of holding calls on this unit. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty solid unit as far as their coverage ability. Now, Breeland could add to that in both aspects. He's the same way. He's touchy-feely for 5 to 10 yards and doesn't get a great punch at the line of scrimmage, but he's a guy who can cover for days, I think. And I would be pretty happy if they were to grab Breeland myself. That just, obviously, you know, you want his toe or his foot or whatever actually it was that was wrong with him to get healed up and for him to be all set to go. But
yeah, he's the kind of guy I think that I think Ballard would like, because he's in his prime or just going into his prime, and as long as his medical stuff checks out, which he should heal, I should be actually, I think they said 3 to 4 months or something like that. It was a few months ago, so he should be in the process of healing. I think once he gets healed, I think that's the guy he'll bring in, just because you can never have, I mean, you just can't have enough corners in this league. You just can't. And we really need the veteran. We need the guy that can come in that you can count on opposite Quincy. Not that you can on this year.
Right.
I'm not saying that.
Right.
Because he very easily could be the guy. But just, you can't have enough corners. And I think I'm really, really pumped. I'm not even going to try to pump the brakes on my excitement. I'm really excited. I cannot wait to see this offense right the way he runs and uses these players. And my favorite thing is, I don't think we're going to be getting out-coached and out-schemed every week or unprepared every week.
And that'll go a long way.
make an in-game decision. So thanks a lot, brother, for taking my call. I just wanted to get some football talk in, and I appreciate you taking my call.
Absolutely, my man. Better luck to the Syracuse Orange, my man. There will be better days.
Thank you. All right, bro.
All right, man. Thank you, Jason, for the call. I appreciate it. Hey, you guys, get in some more calls here. 574-626-8689. We've got another call coming in right now. Appreciate the phone calls. You guys have been great doing this. This is fun. We're actually getting a lot more in. So, what's up, man? You're on the Colts Cast.
What's going on, Coach Cash, man?
Hey, what's up, brother? Hey, turn me down in your background, would you, a little bit?
All right, I got you, buddy.
Okay.
But yeah, man, I was just like, I understand that, even myself, I wanted Bradley Chubb, as far as the defense to go.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's really sad, man, to have just Andrew Luck sit out just his whole 2017 season, man, and all the backlash he get. You watch Sports Center, ESPN, like he's not a top 5 quarterback. You see what I'm saying? But I just feel like Quentin Nelson, man, is somebody that we really, really, really need, man. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, for sure.
And on top of that, like I say, man, it's good to have Bradley Chubb. It is, but damn, when you have Andrew Luck 3-out series, man, and defense on the field, and you get Bradley Chubb, man, cause a forced fumble, and you put Andrew Luck back out there on the field with the bad O-line, getting hit every time, man, I just feel like Quentin Nelson was just that pick, man, that we just needed, and Chris knew that, and everybody else knew that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I was just getting your take on how you feel about that pick.
And it's kind of, honestly, I could say this about several picks, because one of the things that I was kind of adamant about right before the draft is I really wanted a centerpiece to the Colts defense with Roquan Smith. I think that became more of a popular name towards the as the draft got closer, but it would have been the same way whether it had been Saquon Barkley, whether it had been Bradley Chubb, even now with Nelson, or even Roquan Smith. I would have still wanted something from all of those other guys, and you can't knock any of those picks. They can talk about positional value with the guard situation if they want to. That's fine. But you're legitimately dealing with one of the top 3 to 5 players in this draft, a guy that people have said is the best blocking or run blocking offensive lineman in a decade or so to come out. You can't knock that. I mean, positional value, to me, is an argument that's worth having, but it also goes out the window when you don't have that. I mean, it's not just a guy who can block. It's a guy who's kicking people's asses up and down the football field every single time he gets on it. And I would have loved to have seen Bradley Chubb make it to the Colts. But I can't knock the Quentin Nelson pick. I would have loved to have seen the Colts take Roquan Smith and get that centerpiece to their defense going forward, because there's so much hype about him, aside from the fact that he can't apparently quit being robbed. I mean, he's been robbed twice in the past week or something like that. But I mean, but still, you can't knock the Nelson pick. If Barkley would have fallen to the Colts and somehow the Colts would have taken him over anybody else, you couldn't knock that either. There are so many things that the Colts needed right now, and all of those players would have made a legitimate impact on this roster immediately. And now that we are set with Quentin Nelson, it's so much more. I mean, look, the offensive line has been an absolute disgusting dumpster fire for several years. There is nothing more that this Colts team and fans need than to see Andrew Luck legitimately be able to go up and down the field without getting his head taken off several times a drive. I love it. I love the pick. If it was down to all those guys, I don't know that Nelson would have been my pick, but I mean, I think it's either you're trying to save Andrew Luck or you're trying to jumpstart a defense that really has no playmakers in it right now. Yeah. And that was kind of
no names.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the battle that you've got. And I think that Chris Ballard still hit it out of the park. He saw a guy that was a transformative guy for the offensive line. I love it. I think that this Colts offensive line has a lot more upside than people even are giving it, outside of that. I think, and I be honest with you, I think that the Braden Smith pick was actually a really underrated selection for the Colts.
It really was, man.
I mean, they're saying, well, the Colts went heavy on the offensive line, but what they're not saying is that now the Colts actually have depth.
Yeah.
That's something they haven't had for a long time, other than guys that nobody's ever heard of.
And they want to rate us a C on ESPN, man.
ESPN always wants to give us the
crazy,
business, man.
Yeah. And another thing, it's like, when Luck was playing in 2015, 16, man, he'll get hit and banged up, and, not one lineman comes to help the man up. You see what I'm saying? And everybody want to criticize T.Y. Hilton when he called them out. But this my thing, man. I love to see the post-game interviews and all that, but I want to see the linemen speak, man. You see what I'm saying? I want to see them talk and see what goes on in their head, bro. Because I feel like T.Y. Hilton said what he said, and he shouldn't have never apologized. If you remember that. I feel like he shouldn't have apologized, man, because those are facts, man. You guys, Brissett, first year with the Colts, man, the most hit quarterback, and that's just sad. And I'll be scared, man, every time the ball is snapped because I'm knowing, man, I don't know, I might get hit. I don't know. It's just crazy. But to jump on another thing, this is my last one. I feel a lot of confidence going as far as the receivers go because we have Reggie Wayne coaching. You can't go wrong with that at all.
Right.
So what's your take on that?
Oh, well, let me start with Hilton on the Hilton news deal, not news, but I kind of felt similar to you, that he didn't really, I don't know that he had a real reason to apologize, but I think that if you remember back at the time, he wasn't having a great, stretch of games. And I think that that's kind of, it's like, hey, you can talk about us not blocking, but dude, what are you doing? You know what I mean? You're not getting noticed. Now, maybe he was, maybe he wasn't getting open. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't making all the catches, but his production was way down, and it just didn't seem like, I guess it was the timing. If T.Y. Hilton was having his typical season and was getting the production and was making the catches and was getting open, then I don't think that it would have even really had, any backlash at all. But he was right. You're right. True. He was right. He was, those guys were getting killed. But what he also failed to mention was that his quarterback was bypassing wide open looks every single game.
Yes.
So I mean, and here's the wheel that you get on when you do that. When you single out one group, when two or three groups aren't really gelling together and people aren't doing their job to make the ball roll, that's when you get, some side eyes in the locker room and such. It's like, hey, I'm doing my job, but look, I mean, he's taking his 5-step drop and then running around and throwing the ball out of bounds when I'm sitting there wide open 7-8 yards downfield. So you just that's kind of the thing. He didn't really have a reason to, or he wasn't wrong. Let me put it that way. T.Y. wasn't wrong, but I think everything involved timing, what the other issues actually were on the field at the time. It just was bad timing, I think. Now, with this wide receiver group going forward, I think that there's a lot of excitement with them. I mean, like I was saying a few minutes ago, there's a lot of length. They're all height. I mean, they've got some good speed with the group. T.Y. is going to be better. They're going to have, Chester Rogers back. And Chester Rogers is a hard worker, man. I mean, Chester is one of the hardest working guys in the offseason. I think that a lot of what we've heard about Darius Fountain is a similar type guy to Chester Rogers. And I think that that's kind of what they saw in him. And Deion Kane is he is a big guy as well, 6'2", not an inordinately big, but he's got good size and physicality. He's going to be another guy that the Colts are going to hope really, kind of rises to the occasion. But they've got a lot of big guys with some speed that a lot of people don't know about. And so I think that this wide receiver group is going to be similar to the back in the days with Peyton Manning, where he made nobodies turn into really good receivers. And I think when you get Andrew Luck coming back and you have him so determined to be, atop of his game and to make this offense better, I think that you're going to see some guys blow up. I mean, I really do. I think you're going to see some guys that you don't expect to blow up. And when I mean blow up is guys who haven't caught more than a few balls in the league are going to be getting 400 or 500 yards. And I think when you add in Hines and Mack to the playmaking ability and, the additional protection right now, this Colts team, people aren't ready for him. And I think that there are some major gaps still left to be filled. There's no two ways about it. But we all have seen what Andrew Luck can do when he's got the determination to do it. So I'm as excited for this offense as anything, not only to see some of the playmakers, but to see the design and to see the brains kind of behind the veil. I want to see what happens with how they're using different guys, whether it be the tight ends in the backfield, whether it's the multiple running back sets in the backfield, how they're going to line up the tight ends outside. What are they going to do with 2 and 3 receiver sets? You know, I think that it's going to be real interesting. It's going to be a nice mix of a lot of the talent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and one more question. I know the people getting mad I'm holding you up, but as far as I really felt like Ballard should have signed JT Barrett just as far as insurance on Luck, because I see a lot of Deshaun Watson in the dude, man.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, I think that JT Barrett's going to be or could be a quality quarterback, but you have to remember they've also got Brad Kaya and who else? I think that's it. But besides Brissett,
there's only 3 so far.
And I think that I think that's enough for them for what they see right now. Oh, they've also got Phillip Walker. So I think they've kind of got, especially with Phillip Walker, I think they've got that guy for JT Barrett that they kind of feel between him and Kaya. There's a real difference in here. You've got Kaya with a really strong arm. You've got Walker with a guy who can get out of the pocket and make some stuff happen. And then you've got obviously Brissett, who doesn't have the wheels but takes up a lot of space, but can also throw. I think with those guys right now, I don't think that they need a JT Barrett on the roster. Not only that, but I think JT Barrett saw that he didn't, this wasn't ideal for him. He wasn't going to be a guy who could make an impact in this Colts team with what they've got ahead of him.
Yeah, that's true. We appreciate you, man.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for calling.
All right.
Excellent calls so far, guys. If you guys want to get your calls in, let's do it. Let's see, what time is it? 11:12 right now. So if you're on a bit of a delay, that's probably, you're probably a minute behind me. But, we're going to go until about 11:30, a little bit after here, if we continue to get calls and go through. But, he's made a lot of these guys have made some good points. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that a lot of what the Colts are planning to do is really take advantage offensively and see what they can create mismatch wise, and just hope that this defense can be a little more opportunistic going forward. Thank you for calling the Colts Cast, my man. You're on with me. What's up?
Hey man, what's up? Hey, I just want to say I really appreciate your show.
Thank you.
I watch nearly every single video that you post, whether it's later podcast or whatever.
Thank you,
but
man.
I just got like 1 or 2 questions.
Sure.
My first question is, with the whole draft coming by, we didn't select any cornerbacks in the draft. I felt there was a good variety there.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel that the cornerbacks that we did draft in the past seasons and the ones we have on our roster now will kind of fulfill that need, or do you feel that we should go out and grab someone else?
Right now, what the Colts had now, look, I was surprised as well that the Colts didn't add a corner. Whether they went after a guy early, like in the second round, that was kind of where I assumed that they would go. In the second round, they're going to have to be battling back and forth with linebacker and corner, depending, But I don't think that Ballard really saw the value in some of those guys, to be honest with you. Now, there were like Josh Jackson, a couple other guys did fall a little further than they expected them to. So I'm a little surprised that he didn't take the opportunity to get a guy like that. But look, right now, what the Colts have at corner is not top notch. It's not top tier, but I think that the Colts have had to kind of readjust their approach for the coverage. Now, let me kind of explain this. You go from a 3-4 where you're doing heavy press man coverage a lot. You just drafted a Malik Hooker, who's going to be a guy sitting back primarily for what you drafted him for. You drafted him to be a center fielder back there. And now you're going into a 4-3 Tampa 2 style defense where you're going to be asking a little bit different of what what you previously were getting out of these guys. I mean, Quincy Wilson is a guy who's a solid press man corner. One of the things he's going to have to learn to do is to be able to be one of those guys who can break on the ball in a zone and off coverage. Pierre Desir, he's kind of a jack of all trades, I guess you could say. He's really good in press man as well, but he's not bad at all in off man coverage. In fact, he did a lot of that last year, and kind of their number 2 has been that guy to do that. Now, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to figure out, can Nate Hairston hold down that nickel spot again this year? Is there better fits with what they got in the undrafted group to be able to be more of a zone type corner? Now, it's not that they don't have the quality. It's that they just don't have the big names. And this is kind of what we go through every year when a team bypasses a guy who's got a big name, who everybody thinks should be drafted. Maybe the guys that Ballard brought in, last year. I mean, he brought in Kenny Moore, he brought in DJ White. They've added Kenneth Acker, I think it's Acker, to this, and they've also got some experience with Desir and Wilson. Now, I think that they feel DJ White can be kind of that guy that they feel he might be a little bit better suited in their zone, what they're trying to do. But I think Chris Milton's a guy who might be one that flies under the radar, because I think he is really good in his zone. And I think that the Colts showed that when they play, when they were in some of the cover 2 or cover 3, even last year, that they moved him in there occasionally. It looked just like they were just swapping corners at the time, but I think that they used him a little bit more in zone coverage. It's a different animal this year. It really is. And I think that there's going to be some growing pains in probably the first quarter of the season to see who actually is a guy who can drive through the ball, because they are primarily going to be tacklers for outside of the numbers. And they're also going to be guys who have to be really quick reaction guys who can pedal, and guys who can break on the ball and not only get a hand on it, but, tackle through the receiver and make plays on the ball and try to turn the ball over. I wish I had a better answer for you, to be quite honest with you, because I don't. All these guys were drafted with something in mind, and that was not, in my opinion, with what they're moving to in this defense. I don't think a Tampa 2 is what they had envisioned for this year. We've talked, in fact,
that makes sense.
We talked about this last year. We talked about this 6 months ago. I actually had a guy email me even that was wanting to talk about this on the show sometime soon, and we'll probably get him on. But the Colts, it looked with Malik Hooker, like I said, center field, Quincy Wilson with his style of play, and everything that the Colts have done so far, it looked like the Colts were transforming into something like what Seattle runs. More of a cover 3, 4-man front. You've got Geathers in there. This was what we were talking about last year at this time. Like this might be the move. So that's why I was really surprised to hear that Matt Eberflus's system is going to be more of a Tampa 2 style. I almost feel like they're going to be forced to alternate back and forth between that, because this defense, this secondary is just better suited for a cover 3 look for the majority of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be really interesting, because they've got some pieces, they've got some talent, but it would not hurt my feelings to see them go after a guy that they feel is a perfect system fit for this, because I think they're going to need it.
Okay. And my second question is, with Reggie Wayne being a receiving coach now, I guess, my bad. How impactful do you think our young rookie core is going to be, especially Deion Kane learning from someone like Reggie Wayne?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know what? And this was one of the questions that the caller before you asked, and I forgot to get to it. Actually, I got off on a tangent and started chattering, and that's what happens once you get talking. But I think, and there's a couple things here, and I want to talk about it. Reggie is going to be, I think, a crucial piece to this coaching staff. I mean, I know that he's a volunteer, but he's legitimately given these guys firsthand knowledge of how they need to come out of their breaks. What are the most important traits that they need to show on the field? They don't have to be the fastest guy off the line of scrimmage, but they've got to be the most active with their hands, and they've got to stay low, and they've got to use power and speed combination. So there's a lot of things that Reggie's going to do that is going to improve these guys before they even set foot in camp this summer. I think it's going to be a much improved group, and we're going to come out talking about how quality this wide receiver group is and how kind of polished, I guess you could say, in their route running that they are, for some of them being rookies, and some of the undrafted guys as well. Now, Kane and even Fountain. I mean, look at some of the other guys that were brought in. Now, not only that, but the one that I want to watch, and I've talked about him a lot, is Krishawn Hogan, who I think is going to be ultimately what they wanted from Dante Moncrief. He's a 6'3", 220, hefty guy that can run across the middle, but also has the speed to go up over the top in certain situations. I think they'll do some combination routes with him that'll get him wide open, and he might be a big-time playmaker for the Colts this year. He's kind of my dark horse to really be an impact guy out of that wide receiver core. But when you look at Kane, and I mean, ultimately these guys all have to prove that they can be good learners, quick learners, and not only that, but put kind of pencil to paper, so to speak, put this training that they get in the summer and really put it on the field. And they've got to be able to beat what the Colts have in the secondary when they do go 7-on-7s and 11s. I mean, this has to be a group that really improves quickly, because if they don't, this group's going to get whittled down quickly. We're going to see a lot of turnover with this wide receiver group. And not to get completely off the subject here, but I think what we have defensively with Robert Mathis as still the pass rush consultant here is going to be improved. Why is that? Because this is the defense that he played in for 99% of his career. Him teaching in a 3-4 scheme, he knows it, he can teach it. But what he's going to help this defense with pass rush is going to be exponential, in my opinion, going forward, because this is actually the defense he ran. He could have taught it halfway through his career. Now he's going to be teaching it and putting all his focus on this group of pass rushers and defensive ends. I think it's going to be a really interesting group, and I think it's mainly because of what the Colts are running now with him being in there and what he can teach them with their hand placement and all the fundamentals is great. But he's going to be teaching these guys their best angles, how to get upfield quicker, what to look for, to smack down and chop and everything else, and how quickly to do it. He's going to have a much bigger impact, in my opinion, this year on this pass rushing group than he ever could have had last year, simply because of the scheme.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Hey.
Okay, one more question that's popped in my head. You mind if I ask you?
No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right, so our running back situation, I think Marlon Mack is a great running back, and who we picked up in the draft, I feel like we're answering that need. I just want to know how you feel about our running back situation.
I like it, to be honest with you. There's Marlon Mack had some troubles with pass protection last year, picking it up, but you can't mistake how dynamic he is with the ball in his hands. Nyheim Hines, I'm actually really impressed with what I saw from him as far as his pass protection. I think that he's a guy who's willing. He puts his nose in a guy's waist. I think that that's impressive for a guy who's hit 5'9". So I really like that aspect from him. Robert Turbin, we know what we're going to get from him. He's our third down back, third and short. But if they can get Wilkins, Hines, and Mack all in starter form, so to speak, that is a really interesting three-headed monster right there for any situation. Ultimately, this offense is designed to get multiple people active in the backfield to eliminate predictability with the offense. If they can all catch, they can all run between the tackles, and they can all pass protect, then that defense has no idea what to expect regardless of who's in the backfield. This could be one of the best groups that the Colts have had in the backfield. It could turn out to be one of their best backfields in a long time. And I think that most of that is going to be due to the question of whether all of them can get on the same page, whether all of them can get those three abilities down pat, and to be able to put it forward, not only in practice, But once it gets to the preseason, we start seeing some guys, because Wilkins is a guy who's really super patient. Mack is a guy who kind of not only struggled, like I said, to pick up some blitz last year, but he also tended to kick out a little bit too much. Even, in the preseason, he showed that he could make guys miss between the tackles. It seemed like he kind of reverted back to natural, just getting outside and trying to beat everybody to the edge. Hines isn't a guy that I see that does that at all. So I think Hines has a really fast track to getting a ton of snaps. I think that Mack has to improve and get healthy, because he did have surgery if he's not healthy already. And so outside of that, I'm really interested to see how much development Wilkins gets between now and the season. But I'm really excited about this backfield, because I think that finally the Colts have something that teams aren't going to be picking apart before they even get close to snapping the ball. Obviously, Andrew Luck under center is going to make a big difference with that too. But I think that with this backfield added to Andrew Luck, and I think that you've got something really brewing right there for the Colts.
Yeah, and I think also with the offensive line too.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I feel like that with us Japan Quincy, I mean not Quincy Nelson, and yeah, I just feel like us revamping our offensive line is just like that really helps out, and it really a lot off of like our receivers and whatnot. So
yeah, people may not love the draft with what the Colts did. They didn't add a ton of big playmakers or big names, I guess you could say. But what they did is they shored up a lot of situations to where that they can really get something moving on offense. And they've got a good foundation, in my opinion, built in a good head start on what they wanted out of the defensive guys that they did draft. So I think that you can look in 3 years from now, and if some of these guys don't work out, then we can argue about that. But I think that really Chris Ballard got what he wanted out of this draft. Hey, man, I'm going to move on to the next call. I appreciate you calling in, brother.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. You're on the Colts cast. What's going on?
Hey, it's me back again. I was your first call tonight. Something that's kind of been brewing in my head. I want to know if you could pick one way for us to win the game in New England this year. What fashion would you want us to win in? If you can only pick one, would it be Luck throwing 5 touchdowns on them, or would you want us to shut down Brady, sack them all night? What would you pick?
I think it would be a combination of two things. And I think that I'm going to go this route just because it's kind of the way that the Colts have been smacked around by the Patriots, quite honestly, over the past several years. I'd like to see them pick off Brady a few times. I'd like to see one of them go back for a touchdown, obviously. But then I'd like to see the Colts just run it down their throat and then, almost put them into submission, to be honest with you. If Andrew Luck has a couple touchdowns, that's great too. But I would really love to see the Colts plow through the Patriots defense with their running game, if nothing else.
Surprisingly, we've actually we've had a few first halves where we picked off Brady. I know we had that one game where Mike Adams had 2 interceptions when we played him in Lucas Oil, and that was great to watch. But, of course, couldn't finish those games. So, yeah,
right.
I agree. I want that's our only primetime game this year, and I hope we show out. I hope everyone's ready, and I just want to win so bad. That's like my main game. I just hope we show up and really show who we are, especially with everyone. I don't know if you've noticed, but everyone's been putting us 31 or mostly 32 in a lot of the power rankings, and I just laugh at that every time I see it.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams that the Colts are better than that are ranked above them. They're not significantly better than them, but they are better than a lot of those teams. I think at least 5 to 8 of them. Even before we even really consider what's going to happen and how these team works together and what the system looks like and everything else. Half those teams don't even have quarterbacks. So it makes me wonder why they could even put them up there. And even if you were to discount Andrew Luck coming back, you still got a second-year Jacoby Brissett with better protection. And everybody wanted to rant and rave about how good Brissett was last year. I don't understand if that's the case. Why aren't they still giving him the credit for, for what he could possibly do if he was to have to start? But I think that if you look at even an 85% Andrew Luck getting in there with the protection he's going to have, the running backs, and the ability he's going to be able to spread the ball around in this new offense, I think that, that's extremely short-sighted for these people all to have the Colts so low in the power rankings. And I think it's just a thing to where they say, do they have Andrew Luck? We don't know. Put him at the bottom.
Of course, and Andrew Luck in 2016 with, what was he playing? Was he playing with the torn labrum? He put up a still top 5 years amongst quarterbacks with that line, that team, that coaching. Walherd, that just all makes me laugh.
Yeah. I mean, 2016, Andrew Luck was a legitimate top 5 quarterback in the league. I mean, I know that I wrote something about it.
With all those setbacks.
Yeah. Yep. I wrote something about it, and you can go and you look and go to Pro Football Reference and go to their play finder and look at all the quarterback stats throughout the 2016 season. Look where he's at with touchdowns. Look where he's at with interceptions, completion percentage. So on and so forth. Yards per catch or yards per attempt and all that stuff. He's top 5. You can't get around it. And not to mention,
yes,
the dude was injured and still led that team. What was awful, to a 500 record. So, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine somebody thinking that Andrew Luck coming back. They've almost gotten to the point where not only have they forgotten about him, but those who haven't forgotten about him are just like, well, they've got Andrew Luck, like blah, blah, blah. Like the dude won 11 games with 3 of the worst rosters the Colts have ever seen. I mean, it baffles me that the way that people want to discount so much about Andrew Luck before they've seen him, as if they've forgotten what he's capable of. And so many people, drag him through the dirt anyways because of his interceptions early on in his career. And that's fine, but they're not being realistic. And that's okay too, because that argument's not worth having. But this, the way that the Colts are building right now, Andrew Luck coming back, the way that they have this offense all set up, it's going to be an interesting year. I think it's going to be one where, if nothing else, the Colts fans legitimately see some growth. And despite the record, no matter what it turns out to be, Colts fans are legitimately excited for the future, for the next couple years, with Chris Ballard building this team and Frank Reich running it.
Yes, sir. All I can say is I can't wait for the Andrew Luck revenge tour to start.
Yeah, me too. I can't wait to talk about it.
All right, that was my last question for the night. Thank you.
All right, man. Have a good one. Again, more great questions, guys. So if you want to get in here and get a question answered, 574-626-8689, ring me up here on the Colts Cast. And we'll go forward. So let's look at a couple of these other positions. We've kind of talked about the corners, the offensive line. We've talked about the backfield. We talked about the linebackers a little bit, but let's talk about this edge group. Terrell Basham is going to be a guy who is right at home in this 4-3 scheme. Jabal Sheard, another guy right at home, in my opinion, in this 4-3 scheme. If you watch him in his first few years in the league, first couple years at least, when he was with Cleveland, he was electric off the line. Okay, now he's a little older. Maybe he's not quite that type of guy in this, but he's definitely comfortable in this scheme. And he's going to be able to, put his hand in the dirt, be a guy who can get upfield. I think if you look at, even a guy coming in, we've talked about Tyquan Lewis being kind of kicked inside, whether it be in sub packages or just whenever they decide that they need to present some interior pressure. He's going to be a guy who's good. The one guy is a guy that I was somewhat high on through the draft when I was grading the edge rushers in this class. Kimoko Toure is a guy who I'm really intrigued to see how they use him and what he can produce in the process. Of the guys who are listed and actually going to be defensive ends in this group, he's the one guy who was upright, more of in a 3-4 scheme in Rutgers. And I think that when you get his hand in the dirt, yes, I think you're going to see way more explosion. It's just natural. Ballard has touched on this several times in the past, even just the past couple weeks. but he is a guy who is going to be, who's going to have the ability to be a real pass rushing threat every single play. Do they use him in coverage more as an outside linebacker? Sometimes, I don't know. That's kind of the thing. He's not a guy that I would see that they're going to kick inside. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. He's definitely got the size to do it. I just don't know if I just don't know if that's a good fit. I don't know if that's a wise move or even a good one, depending upon what he can actually prove when he does it. I think that they probably use him in several different opportunities. Use him as a 4-down lineman to be able to get the pass rush when they need a break from whether it be Basham or whether it be, Sheard or Simon or however this is all going to go. But I think they've got some flexibility with both Simon and Toure to where they can bring in a second unit. They can punch those guys outside in coverage if they absolutely have to. I don't know that that would be a great idea with Simon, but at least Toure, who's got that 6'5" length to him, he's got the athleticism to where you could use him out there, and you don't know if he's in coverage or whether he's coming in to rush the passer. And I think that's something that they could also use defensively to, relieve some predictability with their defense as well. They're not going to have a lot of predictability this year because it's a whole new scheme. It's a brand new defensive coordinator, not only to the Colts, but he's never been a defensive coordinator, at least in the NFL. He's been a linebackers coach. So at least we should probably see the pressure be very interesting. And you want to see what he's dialing up, how unique, he sets up some of these packages and how unique he's setting up some of these blitzes. And I think these blitz packages are going to be kind of what the Colts are going to have to make their bread with, because the Colts don't have that top 3 tech that they truly need in this. Last year in the 3-4, you need that nose tackle that Al Woods is to hold down the middle. They had 2 of them ultimately with Hankins and Woods. Now you have to find that premier 3 tech that's going to be able to get pressure every time, also kind of be a stop the run type guy, but you've got a lot less responsibilities for the guys up front. Whereas their responsibility was basically with their 2-gap system was to hold up as many blockers as possible, allow the linebackers to flow, move, and tackle. Whereas now they're the guys who are hunting not only the guy in the backfield, but the quarterback. So it's going to be a lot of fun to see this. And I say interesting, and it's going to be intriguing and all that stuff. I've said it a billion times, and I just don't know another way really to explain it. However, it is going to be a lot of fun. It is going to be a lot of fun to see how these guys kind of work together. And I just really want to see it all work out. I really, truly do. I want to see it get to a point to where the excitement is real. I want to see the way that the Colts can, just really put it all together. I want to see the pass rush. I want to see the coverage on the back end. I want to see what these linebackers can do, how powerful they can be just stopping the run, how good like a guy like Anthony Walker can do in this. I think he's probably going to be more of the Sam guy in this defense, so I'm excited to see that. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of things with this defense I'm excited to see. I hope that they provide enough production and legitimate talent going forward to where it doesn't become kind of a lost year. I don't think that it will be. I think they've got enough there to work with. And I think that with all the hype that kind of Eberflus brings out of Dallas, that people think that he's got a bright mind. He's got enough up there to really turn this team around. So I'm interested to see that. And you add Frank Reich's offense in there, and I think that you're going to have 2 really interesting schemes for the Colts to put on the field. You're going to have the talent on the offense. You're going to have the dynamic. You're going to have some new faces in the wide receiver core, better protection, possibly even better run blocking. And then defensively, you've got guys who are going to be really, truly trying to make a name for themselves. The Colts look good at safety. I mean, you've got Geathers, you've got Hooker, you've at least got Farley, and then whoever is after that, whether it's TJ Green, Ronald Martin, or one of the, Chris Cooper, one of the guys that they brought in as UDFAs. But you've got guys on the outside who are really going to try to make a name for themselves. This corner group, who's the backups? You know, does Quincy Wilson actually earn a starting spot? Does Pierre Desir actually earn a starting spot? And then who's behind them? Is Nate Hairston a guy that they possibly see as a starting outside corner? I know he played in the slot last year. Does that mean that they have to throw him in the slot this year? We don't know. He was better in the slot than he was outside. Whether that turns out to be ultimately what happens, we don't know that. That's what's going to be so fun about this group, because they're going to be interchanging a bunch of guys back and forth. They're going to use some guys on the outside. They're going to put some guys in the slot who haven't typically been there. They want to find out what guys can do, how they can build themselves up, how they can cover. Can they match up with the tight ends? Are they good in press, off man, all the above? So it's going to be a lot of fun for us going forward. I'm excited to see it. And I think that you guys are too. I think that this group and this new coaching staff and the new systems that are in place are really making a lot of excitement for Colts fans, for everybody involved. So guys, thank you all for joining me here on another Colts cast. I appreciate it. We did almost get us a full hour and a half in, about an hour and 10 minutes, actually not quite close to a full hour and a half, but excellent calls. Definitely some good stuff to talk about going forward. I think that we are all sharing in the excitement that the Colts are bringing, and hope that you guys enjoyed it. We'll continue to do these every so often. Thank you guys for joining me. We'll talk to you next time right here on the Colts Cast.